to do the terminating decimals to a fraction first. So for example 1. Okay, we know this decimal terminates, it stops. We want to be careful and read our decimals properly when we're doing this. So instead of, sometimes we get in the bad habit of saying this would be 0.825. I want you to actually read it properly using your place value. What would this number read as? Yes?
825,000.
Very good. 825 thousandths. Okay, so to write it as a fraction, we write it as we read it. We're going to put 825 over 1,000. 825 thousandths. Right. So once you write it as a fraction, we always want to make sure to see if we can what? Simplify. So simplify if you can. And usually in the past you guys have, we look for that greatest common factor. Does anyone know what might be the greatest common factor that would go into both of these? 25. So you could divide both by 25 and you simplify your fraction. For this, I am going to allow you to use your calculators because I think it's such a neat feature that your calculator has. If you just go ahead and put in your 825 divided by 1,000. Now that's too dark, huh? So if you put in 825 divided by 1,000, I love how it leaves it as a fraction and it simplifies it for you. Isn't that really neat? Makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to allow you to use that feature just because that way you'll get used to it for the rest of the year, okay? So it ends up 33 over 40. And we would be done. Okay. Is there anyone that cannot get that? Just raise your hand. I'll come around and if you put a fraction in and it just stays the same, then that means it's already simplified. Can't be simplified anymore. All right, let's try another one here. So here's our decimal. It terminates. There's no repeating bar. How would we read this one? So if you say it to yourself, it makes it easier. Yes? 12 hundredths. So when I write it as a fraction, I take the 12 and I put it over the place value, right? 12 hundredths. 12 over 100. And what would this one simplify to? 3/25. Very good. 4 would actually go into both. 4 would be your greatest common factor. Okay. But again, your calculator will do that part for you. All right, let's take a look at one more with the terminating decimal before we move on here. What if we now have a whole number? How do we read this one? Haley?
1 and 4 tenths.
So it's 1 and then our 4 tenths. Okay, so that whole number kind of stays out in front. This is the part that you're turning into your fraction. So we have 1 and then 4/10, or 4/10. Does that simplify? 4/10 also is what? 2/5. So 1 and 2/5. And so if there's that whole number out in front, just make sure you include it in front of your fraction at the end there. All right, everybody okay with those so far? Any questions?